All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Campfire. This time we are deviating from Dota yet again. I am joined tonight by two of my favorite people from the Smash scene,
ladies and gentlemen,
Progducto and Tafokints. And for those of you who live under a rock and don't know who they are, it would be wonderful if you guys could introduce yourselves, starting with Prog.
Hi, Prog, former commentator, working now, doing a bit of content production with Last Dog Legends, and good to be here.
All right, Tafo.
I'm a washed-up Sheik main. I do stats and commentary for the community, and also write for different sites.
And we do love Tafo's stats because they're absolutely fantastic. He gets a special shout-out from the Standard Deviants. And if you have any interest whatsoever in Smash stats, you should totally check out that website. All right, so recently we had the second Smash Summit, which was, pun most thoroughly intended, a smashing success. I think everything I'm hearing was that people really enjoyed the experience, but then again, I wasn't on site. So tell me a little bit about what it was like to travel out there, what the kind of just atmosphere was. You know, was it like high-level competition? Was it super relaxed? What's going on?
Tap, you want to take it, or should I?
Oh, you traveled. I just had to drive there.
Oh, okay. Then, it's always interesting going for a cross-country trip. So I left with Papa Payne from Virginia. And in terms of, I guess, the kind of how the house felt, there was certainly a lot of high-level competition. Everyone would go upstairs and play whatever matches they wanted to. But at the same time, there was a lot of room for it to be a bit more relaxed. Often you were seeing matchups between players that you don't see too often, especially when they start bringing out secondaries and they're talking theory. It was just a really, really relaxed atmosphere, which I think all of the players appreciated.
Tafo, how about you? What'd you see there? Oh, did we lose a Tafo?
Possibly.
I think we may have lost Tafo. Either that or his mic went silent. Oh, let me see if I can ping him. And in the meantime, so we saw not quite as many mix-ups. We didn't see quite as many upsets as we did, say, at PAN 2016. But then again, I don't think we're ever going to quite match the number of upsets we saw at PAN 2016. What? Oh, dear goodness. I think that was Tafo's mic squeaking in protest.
Potentially.
Sorry about the technical issues, guys. This is a new one for us. It appears Tafo is trying to frantically fix things. So,
Hi.
There we go. There he is. You survived. All right.
Sorry.
Tell us a bit. That's all right. Tell us a bit about your experience traveling out to the Summit House and the whole crew out there.
They're amazing. Well, I just had to drive to the hotel, and then they picked us up, so it wasn't really much of a trip. But beyond the Summit staff, they're super hospitable. They're on top of our game. They make sure that we're taken care of, and this is one of my favorite events of the year.
I can see why. It's definitely a unique event. I know in the Dota scene, like the Smash Summit or the regular Summit is always a kind of more of like a fun, relaxed vibe for the players. It sounds like what you guys are describing is like almost that staying in such close proximity to each other. The play level is almost more heightened.
Well, I think it's that play level is always going to be apparent at any major. However, just because of the reduction in numbers, in addition to the close proximity, I think that's what definitely helped out a bit more. It isn't. We're a bit too far removed from the days when there'd be 300 people at a major. So, let alone having 16 of the best in the world competing at once. So, I definitely think that it was just a really, really unique event in terms of that. So.
And I have to say, like, a lot of the things that, for top players, what a lot of newer players don't realize is that they're in pools, they're playing doubles the whole day at a normal major. And for an event like this, they don't have to play multiple games, and they're taken care of. They don't have to think about food because it's all there, and so that helps them just really just focus on gameplay only.
That could definitely have a pretty big impact. So Tafo, this one's specifically for you. In terms of results that you've seen over the course of the year so far, and then results that you've seen specifically at Smash Summit, what was kind of expected? What was unexpected? Other than the really big obvious one, what was going on for you in terms of stats?
Well, I mean, the big obvious one, just to elaborate, was Mutaking 3-0ing Armada. I don't think anybody would have bet on Mutaking winning the set.
Let alone 3-0ing.
Yeah, so that was a huge surprise because Mutaking's weaknesses are floatier characters that he can't just zero to death. And he was just interacting, just winning the interactions piece by piece by piece. And then something we rarely ever see from Mutaking against the Big Six. The one thing that was really big, and this is going to be really important coming up ahead, is the role of an analyst coach. This is something that Dota has with, I think, dedicated pick bans, and they structure their practices in a certain way. And there was one player in particular, Prince Abu, that was flown just to help people with the Jigglypuff matchup because Hungrybox has just been doing so well.
For those who aren't aware, for our regular Dota viewers, Hungrybox is easily one of the top players in the world, and he's unique in that he mains Jigglypuff, and literally no one else does that except for Prince Abu, who's kind of known as like a mid-tier player, like, not one of not on the 5 gods level, not a God Slayer level, a relatively solid player, but he mains Puff, which makes him really useful in terms of analytics and prepping for that specific matchup. Prog, how about for you? Were there any big upsets, anything you didn't expect to happen?
I think one thing that kind of caught me off guard was the performance in doubles of Mango and S2J. Traditionally, we're used to seeing Mango teaming up with someone like Lucky. S2J actually had one of his old team's partners in the building with Lovage there, but it's good seeing them perform. I know at Pound they did register together, but I think they were disqualified because they didn't show up on time or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely showing that they are a very, very capable team. It's a bit of a unique take on teams. It seems to be a lot more aggressive than most squads. Sure, you definitely still have Mango playing a support role, but you still have that natural Mango aggression attached to it. So it's almost as if they're running 2 points, but not quite. I think that was one of the standouts besides, of course, M2K and his performance against Armada. In addition, Esam, I think a lot of people were caught off guard by how well he performed, but I guess they don't really know how deep his history goes. And I guess one thing that I want to see is just the feature from him. I know that Smash 4 currently is his main game, and he said that he wanted to take this opportunity to see what he really could do in Melee, and I want to see what he does with that, going down this road. So
actually, that leads me really well into my next question, talking about who was at the event and how they got there. So as with every Summit event, there are, there's fan favorites, there's fan voting involved, and that was how some of the players arrived at the event, through the votes of the fans, through campaigning, through pictures in duck onesies, through pictures not in duck onesies. So talk a little bit about the players who got there because of the fans sending them there. What did they do? What did they do that makes them fan favorites?
I can start with some of them, and Prog can add. So there are people that play very stylishly, and there are certain characters that, and personalities that people will naturally root for. So originally, Hax was one of the first people voted in, and he has this very interesting, abrasive personality that everybody seems to love, and he hasn't really participated in much, and he's wanted the opportunity. So everybody loves Hax. Similarly, S2J plays top 8 at Pound. He has a really read-heavy Falcon that's really fun to watch. And he has a funny personality. You see him and you look at him, you're like, oh, this is probably a quiet guy, but then he has like a really funny personality. And the third person I want to talk about is Wobbles. He plays Ice Climbers, which gets a lot of negativity because of the wobble, but he has these really stylish combos. He's a really good commentator, and so he brings a lot of value to the table.
For sure. Homemade Wobbles is probably one of my new favorite commentating teams. Prog, what do you got to add?
Then on the other end, we had, who did we have? We had, again, we mentioned D-Sam earlier. Again, he's got a huge following stemming from his winning ways in Smash 4, and certainly used that demographic to his advantage. We had Duck, who replaced Hax as our last-minute participant. And I think that a lot of people were hoping that Duck would show up, especially with Esam being there. Esam, of course, no slouch as a Samus, but most people would say that if there is one dedicated main Samus player, it is Duck. So having both of them there certainly opened up a lot of eyes. In addition to having Plump, who I don't think went to Samus too much this weekend beyond the Iron Man. But he's another person that's capable of using that character. And then we had Ice. Ice is he's kind of similar to Silent Wolf, I would say, in terms of how he uses social media, which is he really doesn't too much. He's well known for his play, and I think that is first and foremost to him. He's not really concerned with doing stuff on Twitter or on Facebook or getting a bunch of views. For him, all he wants is his placement and his skill to do the talking for him. And I think a lot of people were surprised that he ended up making it in because he isn't as visible as some of the other players. So.
All right. So, what do you guys think of some of the less traditional, I suppose, game styles at Smash Summit? I mean, I'm not just talking about playing Mafia, but things like the Iron Man challenge, as opposed to just your standard doubles and singles, which we see at every major. Did the players really get into that? Were the players kind of treating it like fun? Like, what was like the balance of I guess fun to competitiveness with some of the less traditional game styles?
It seemed to be pretty split depending on who you ask. Not everyone was taking the challenges 100% because they're playing secondaries that they rarely brush off. At the same time, I remember at one point, I think it was Wobbles and Hungrybox basically doing a one-on-one set just to determine who would be the person representing their team. So yeah, it kind of deviated from player to player. But I think a lot of people, they liked seeing some of their other characters and getting the chance to see some weird matchups because of that. So.
And I think the 2 people, 1 controller thing was a pretty fun event. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. I think the big complaint in Smash Summit 1 was that the rules were too confusing for Smash Summit 1 for the challenges. Okay. And I think that's why they implemented other things. And I think people people like seeing more of the charades type of things. I'm not sure if everybody was into it, but I think at least half were having a fun time with it. Mewtwo King's Misfire was obviously the highlight of that game.
Don't think anything's really going to top that particular screen grab. But I know it was, as a viewer, it was really fun to see the players having so much fun with what they were doing, both, inside of, matchups and outside of it. And I think that's one of the really unique things that the Summit's able to provide, that, that we get that look at players and we get to see them just having fun, remembering why they love the game as much as, we love watching them. So in terms of those challenges and some of the secondaries that came out, did anybody have secondaries that were way better than you were expecting? Or was it kind of just up to your expectations?
I think, by this point, a lot of us have seen these players play these secondaries back when they were their mains, or even seen them play in exhibitions with these characters or money matches. So we kind of know what to expect, but it's still just surprising to see exactly how far a talented player can take a character that isn't quite as gifted.
Right. And, for any of our Dota viewers currently sitting in here, just a quick rundown of who are some of kind of the higher tier characters right now in Smash, and who are some characters that everybody's like, nah, there's really no point in playing them.
How would you handle this one?
All right. So general consensus is that Fox, some combination of Fox, Falco, Sheik, and Marth are the best, with Fox towards the top. Jigglypuff, has arguments for being higher in that tier. Some people put him lower. It's really tough to say whether it's Hungrybox, just if Hungrybox is really that good, or if Jigglypuff is that good. And then there's also Peach, Captain Falcon, and Ice Climbers that round out the top 8. And then you have some mid tiers that kind of do well, and that's just because the players playing them are just really good. So you have Samus, that was seen a lot. Axe with Pikachu is really good, and then occasionally you'll see a Luigi or Mario or Dr. Mario in that as well.
All right, good to know. Glad we could provide that quick recap for people. So you guys mentioned earlier the issues with Ice Climbers giving you wobbles. What other big issues did players come up against at Smash Summit specifically, in terms of character matchups or specific skills or combos that are just really tough to deal with? And did anybody come up with any really unique ways to overcome them?
Well, I actually had an article on wobbling, and the general consensus, I think, is that it's really unfair for people getting into the game. It's a really bad mechanic in that perspective, because if you're learning the game and then you get killed for every little mistake, it's just not really a fun experience for them. But they kind of view at the higher levels of play, Ice Climbers don't really do that well. So they need it to survive. So there wasn't really much of an issue. I think overall, the Principaboo and the Jigglypuff thing, Principaboo provided a lot of help. So that was one of the ways that they tried to overcome that matchup.
Brog, you in agreement on that one? Pretty much.
Certainly.
So in that same vein, in the vein of Principaboo coming along to help out, and really specifically for that one matchup, something I've noticed about the Smash community is that there seems to be a lot of support for each other. And I'm not saying no, the scene's perfect, because no scene is, but there seems to be a lot of hey, I discovered this cool, tech skill, or I found this new thing that I can do, or this new combo that works out really well. And there's this immediate wanting to tell people about it, not to be I'm the greatest because I found this thing, but more let's all benefit from this. So how do you guys think the Smash scene really kind of built that attitude? What's kind of behind all of that?
I think that's just from the dedication of the players. I think that every time there's a discovery in Melee, I think the community is just always astounded, because some people have been playing this competitively for now 15 years, and the fact that things are still being discovered is mind-blowing to them. So I think that especially when things are discovered, there's always, I want to share, I want to be one of the people that's helping push the game to its limits, even if I'm not a top player. But if I discover something, if I'm able to path something out that'll make a lasting impression on the game, I've done more than I expected to. So,
all right, that's a really cool perspective.
And we never. It's kind of new for us that people play this for livable money. So we were always grassroots, and we kind of had to stick together to really survive. And the top players, PPMD, for example, have always been willing to share nuggets of wisdom on Smash boards, and so it kind of sets this precedent that the top players, when this game came out, were sharing information. So you kind of look like a dick if you don't share information, because the fact of the matter is that I got good because 20 other people poured into me, and so why should I withhold information? I think is what most people feel.
I really like that perspective. That's a really awesome way to be looking at your game and at your scene, at the people you play with and against. I know recently, Melee in particular, has been undergoing a bit of a revival. There was, of course, the famous documentary a little while back. And now we're kind of continuing that, I guess, chronicling tradition with some of the work that Last Stock Legends is doing. So Prog, can you talk a little bit about what you guys have been up to recently and what you guys are doing moving forward?
That's a good question. Actually, we were kind of joking around, Peyton and I, how did we go from Ken Bomb Soldier to Dewan Energy McDaniel? But
I think you mean natural energy, power of apples.
but yeah, I guess the original Last of Legends plan was we just wanted to, I guess, do kind of 30 for 30 style, just really explaining some of the biggest moments in the scene, whether it was a big combo, a huge match, the implications of it, what it did for the people involved, and how it impacted the game as a whole. So fairly recently, we released the first of that series, but at the same time, at Smash Summit, we had a chance to go a bit more low key or a bit more out there with our content. We released, I think, about nine videos over the course of the weekend, and there are still a lot more being pieced together that'll be coming out over the coming weeks. But it was really, really interesting to be able to do some esoteric and out there stuff, to do a bit of comedy with Smashers and show off a bit more personality than people are used to seeing with these guys. So I think that was something that definitely helped out, the advancement of the players and how they're perceived, but certainly helped out LSL as well.
Yep. And I think the Alex video was definitely one of the favorites, and there are already, campaigns to play it like a no cell phone announcement before every major matchup from now on. But it's for those of you who aren't aware, both at Pound Series 2016 and at Smash Summit, videos were the footage was recorded, edited, put together, produced as like an entire complete video, like in the span of a day or less than, which is absolutely insane and a real testament to the hard work that Last Stock Legends is doing. So you guys should definitely check them out on Twitter if you haven't done that already. And again, I know half of this is specifically to our Dota viewers because most of y'all in chat who are following the Smash scene to any extent are already following Prog and Tafo and Last Stock Legends. So we are actually rapidly nearing the end of the topics that I'd had in mind. So that being said, I'm going to open the floor to you guys. Was there anything that you guys wanted to chat about that happened at Summit, surrounding the Summit, general community stuff that you'd like to use this platform and this time to chat about?
The only thing I would like to say is that when you are done with your match, make sure that you grab the proper phone. It doesn't matter who you beat and how hard you pop off, but make sure you grab the right person's phone. We had an incident after a certain 3-0 with a player from Sweden having to chase a player from New Jersey up the stairs to get their phone back. So,
oh dear, that is unfortunate. All right, there you go, guys. Keep track of your phone; very important. Tafo, any nuggets of wisdom for us?
It's a fun game. You guys should definitely try it out. And I know that Dota fans really like mechanically, heavy games. Melee is also one. 15 minutes a day will get your tech skill better over time.
So speaking from experience, as someone who is bloody awful at both Dota and at Melee, I can inform you that yes, it is indeed a mechanically heavy game, and that spending any amount of time whatsoever can really help. We do have a couple questions from the chat, it looks like. In light of Abu helping Armada and about Hungrybox's progression, what are your opinions on coaching in the Melee scene?
I am a proponent of coaching. It just matters. I'm personally not a fan of coaching happening in the middle of a set.
Okay.
In between sets, sure, but I think when you're on that stage, especially, it's a battle of wits, a battle of adaptation. It's about you and the other person, not you, the other person, their friend, what the social media is saying. That's personally my view on it. I know that not everyone shares that view, but I guess it's kind of interesting because of how things are developing. I know there was an issue, I think this weekend at West Coast Warzone, I believe, with coaching there as well. And I'm not going to say that it doesn't, that coaching makes things brain dead, so to speak, because you still have to listen and apply the knowledge that's given to you. But I always feel like I would prefer seeing the players having to make those decisions and those discoveries for themselves rather than it being spoon-fed.
So almost like somebody who helps you train and helps you learn how to learn, than somebody who teaches you everything there is to know about the game.
Oh, I just mean in the midst of the set. If we're talking about in terms of the growth process and whatnot, there's no problem with that at all. I think everyone came up with a player who was more experienced than them, who would basically beat the crap out of them and say, you're doing X, Y, and Z wrong. So coaching in that aspect, I think, is a necessity. It's how people get into the game for this long. But when it comes to mid-tournament, I say after or before the set, not in the midst of it.
Do tournaments have rules on that currently, or is this something that hasn't been enough? It hasn't been prevalent enough that it's required any rulings yet.
It depends from event to event. There really is. Oh, that's not a good sound.
Oh, it's a loud thumping sound. But it varies from location to location whether there is or isn't a ruling. And
right, tournament series, TO. There's a lot of different variations.
Okay. And Tafo, kind of in the vein of what you do you think that there's a separate role that is or should be available for someone who looks at statistics in the scene, or is it kind of incorporated more into just a general overall coaching plan?
I think so. Analytics aren't really as well developed in Smash. It's kind of hodgepodge. And what I think about this whole Hungrybox having Captain Crunch and Armada having Prince of Boo, I think it's only going to continue the trend, and I think players are going to look for every available advantage. And the statistic I'd like to give is that in the last 6 events that Armada and Hungrybox were both at, the 4 events that Prince of Boo were at, Armada won, and the 2 events that Prince of Boo was not able to make it, Hungrybox won. And so I think people are going to push gameplay habits, because we played this game for 15 years, and even the top players don't have matchups optimized as much as it should be. There's so much interactions that happen, there's so much variety that it can only get better. I've given analytics in the past. I've told people that their stage counterpicking, which is unique to Smash, where you can pick stage and character combinations, wasn't very optimal. So people have contacted me in private and said, what do I do against this person? And I would give them their win percentages on different stages and what they should be banning and what should they be picking.
Very cool. That sounds pretty similar to the role of some of our analytical stats people do prep for teams, and it's definitely a vital part of our scene, and I can definitely see it becoming a pretty important part of yours as the game continues to progress at a really high competitive level. So, seeing as there are no more questions from chat, and seeing as we've run through all of my questions, it is now time for the origin stories, aka the part where you tell us about how you got into gaming at all in general. It could be, when you were 3 years old and playing on your older brother's GameCube or whatever you had at the time, Sega Genesis, and about how you picked your name, both of which are important and interesting and fun trivia stuff. So, Prog, how'd you get your start and how'd you pick the name?
I got into gaming when I was 3 years old. My sister went to Hampton University, and of course my parents were dropping her off, and they had nothing to do with me. Fortunately, one of the people in her suite had a Nintendo, and they just sat me down in front of it, and Mario and I, starting in 1989, that's how it's been. And then I got into competitive gaming in 1999, playing Unreal Tournament first and foremost, and moved into fighting games around 05, including Smash, so been around for a bit. As for the origin of the tag, when I started really getting into Smash, I was really heavy into a lot of progressive rock. So Dream Theater, being from Long Island, was huge for me. And I just joined into prog, and that's what I run with. So.
All right. And you were also once a member, well, still are a member, only semi-retired member of a tribe called Rest, which is still one of the best commentator type game names there is.
Yeah, that was D1 and I are both from New York, huge fans of hip hop, so we felt like that was a solid name for us.
It was a pretty good choice. All right, Tafo, how'd you get your start in gaming at all, and how'd you pick the name?
So, if you ever run into my older cousins, they will tell you that even when I was about 1 year old, I'm like the youngest of 3, If my brother and my sister turned off the Nintendo, I would start crying at the young age of 1. So they were forced to play Nintendo for a really long time so that I wouldn't cry. So I don't know. I guess that would be my start into gaming, and then I would play Nintendo all the time, and it kind of went from there. Competitive gaming, I was in a high school Smash tournament, and to gain an edge, like I wanted to look online to see if there's like any information. And this was prior to the days of YouTube. It was like 2003, 2004. So I was looking for whatever information I could find. I found Smash boards. Found some really good videos where I thought they were cheating and I didn't know what was going on. And then that's how I kind of gateway drugged into Smash competitively. As for my tag, I used to play Warcraft 3 a lot. And my original screen name on that was Fatboy792 because I was really chubby and AOL assigned me that name. AOL, that's a really old. But anyway, I digress. And I really liked Homestar Runner, and unfortunately my internet was really awful, so what would happen is I'd play 5 games and then I'd disconnect for 10, so I'd be 5 and 10, so I'd have to keep coming with new names. And then Stinko Man is a character in Homestar Runner, so I started doing like Stinko Man, Stinko Fat, and then those weren't working out because my internet was so awful. And then I kind of reversed the name. I spelled it backwards. I realized I misspelled it, but by then my internet stabilized, and I was like 20. I was 25 and 0 at that point, and I was like, oh, like 25 and 0 is really good. I'll just keep it. I realized I misspelled it because I went on my friend's computer and I was like Tafokints, and it just wouldn't work. And I was like, and then I went home and I was like, oh crap, I actually misspelled it. And so that was the birth of Tafokints.
I think you may currently have the best name origin story we've found. That the entire reason you have your name is that your internet stabilized and you can't spell things backwards. That so far, unless we have any challengers to that title, I think that's probably going to win it for quite some time.
Awesome.
All right, so time to wrap things up a little bit. Do you guys have any shout-outs you want to make before we head out? And just so you know, your tags are indeed on the screen underneath your name so people know where to follow you.
Do you want to start?
Sure. I'll give a big thank you to, of course, everyone at the Beyond the Summit House for having us. It's definitely one of the most interesting experiences I've had in Smash, and it really brought back a lot of old memories, so I'm eternally grateful for that. Grateful for the team this weekend for Last Stock Legends. We've had a couple people here and there depending on what event it is. This weekend, we were joined by Papa Paint and Zoo, and those gentlemen put together a lot of great stuff. So please follow them on Twitter at @poor_zoo, I believe, and at Papa Paint Vids. You can follow Last Stock Legends at Last Stock Legend, no S.
Got it. Tafo, any shout-outs for you?
Shouts to everybody. Shouts to the larger esports scene. It's really cool that we get opportunities to kind of commingle and mesh. So really thank you for having us on. And shouts to the Melee community and shouts to the Dota 2 community for being awesome.
Well, we appreciate the shout-outs. It was a real pleasure having you guys on tonight. It was absolutely an enjoyable experience to chat with you guys again. So really glad you got a chance to speak to at least some amount of a Dota audience. I'm sure that the vast majority of people here were definitely here for you guys and not for us. So with that being said, it is time for us to sign off here from Fountain Camping. So everyone, have a good night.